He's the man many believe can take down the Conservatives and lead Britain into a new era. A quiet lawyer turned politician. Sir Keir Starmer came from humble beginnings to stand on the edge of 10 Downing Street. But who really is Keir Starmer? Is he the man who can fix a divided Britain? Or just another politician with promises? Stay till the end to see the story behind the calm face, and why his next move could change the UK forever. Keir Starmer was born in 1962 in Southwark, London, and raised in the small town of Oxted, far from the political bubble of Westminster. His upbringing was modest and grounded. His father was a toolmaker who spent long hours in a factory, while his mother was a dedicated nurse who battled severe illness for much of her life. It wasn't a household of wealth or political power, but one built on hard work, resilience, and quiet pride. His parents named him after Keir Hardie, the Scottish trade unionist and founder of the Labour Party, a name that would turn out to be more than just a tribute. It was almost like a signpost pointing to a future no one could fully see yet. A boy from an ordinary family who would one day lead the same party that Hardie had built for working people over a century ago. Unlike many who climbed the ladder in politics, Keir didn't grow up with connections, elite schools, or fancy holidays. Friends from those early years describe him as reserved but determined. A serious young man who spent more time buried in books than chasing popularity. Even then, he cared more about facts, fairness, and justice than making flashy speeches to win people over. He carried that sense of quiet determination through university and beyond, setting the foundations for a career that would take him from courtrooms to parliament, all while never forgetting where he came from or the working-class values that shaped him from the start. Before he ever set foot in Parliament, Keir Starmer built his reputation where it mattered most to him: in the courtroom, fighting for justice. After studying law at Leeds and then Oxford, he dedicated himself to human rights cases, often taking on causes that others thought were too difficult, too controversial, or simply too thankless to touch. He defended the right to free speech, challenged the abuse of state power, and stood up for people whose voices were usually ignored. From protesters silenced by unfair laws to vulnerable individuals wronged by powerful institutions. His work wasn't about fame. It was about making sure the law protected everyone, not just the privileged few. In 2008, he stepped into one of the toughest legal jobs in the country when he was appointed Britain's Director of Public Prosecutions. For 5 years, he led the Crown Prosecution Service, overseeing complex, high-profile cases against terrorists, violent criminals, and corrupt officials. He modernized parts of the system, pushed for fairer treatment of victims, and took responsibility for decisions that often made headlines, good or bad. His dedication earned him one of Britain's highest honors, a knighthood for services to law and criminal justice. But even with the title of Sir Keir Starmer, he's famously uncomfortable with it. To him, the work mattered more than the label, and he'd rather people just call him Keir, the same quiet, serious man who stepped into a courtroom because he believed in the power of the law to protect ordinary people. ChatGPT said, when Labour crashed to one of its worst defeats in modern history in 2019, the party wasn't just beaten, it was broken. Years of infighting, controversies, and bitter divides had left once loyal voters drifting away in droves. The country had turned its back on Labour's promises, and inside the party, the blame game was tearing people apart. Jeremy Corbyn, the leader who had inspired thousands but lost millions more, stepped down, leaving behind a party in pieces and a mountain of trust to rebuild. Into that mess stepped Keir Starmer, the quiet barrister turned politician, who many dismissed as too dull to inspire a comeback. Critics said he was too cautious, too serious, too stiff to ever connect with ordinary people. He didn't fire up crowds with slogans or sweeping speeches like some of his predecessors. But Starmer promised something simple yet radical for Labour at that moment: competence, unity, and a path back to power. From day one, he knew it wouldn't be easy. He faced open rebellion from parts of the party still loyal to Corbyn's vision. There were rows about policies, about anti-Semitism, about who spoke for Labour's heart. Starmer's challenge was to calm the storms without driving away those who still believed in the party's old ideals. He tightened the party's message, cracked down on scandals, and tried to drag Labour back from the edges to the mainstream. A place where millions who had voted Conservative might look again and see an alternative they could trust. He didn't promise overnight miracles. He promised to listen, rebuild, and fix what had been broken from the inside out. It was slow, sometimes thankless work. Fighting battles behind closed doors, changing faces in the front benches, reining in voices that could cost votes in towns Labour once called home. For Keir Starmer, every small step forward was part of a bigger promise. To prove that serious, steady leadership could make Labour not just a protest party, but a government in waiting once more. In Parliament, Keir Starmer showed critics that behind the calm voice and careful words was a mind as sharp as any barrister's cross-examination. Week after week, during Prime Minister's questions, he stood opposite Boris Johnson, a showman who loved chaos and charisma, and pressed him with the precision of a courtroom prosecutor. When the Partygate scandal erupted, secret lockdown parties in Downing Street, while ordinary people were kept apart from dying loved ones, Starmer didn't shout for the cameras. Instead, he cornered Johnson with facts and questions he couldn't dodge, exposing contradictions, calling out lies, and refusing to let the story fade away. To some, it looked dull compared to Johnson's jokes and slogans, but for millions fed up with double standards and broken promises, Starmer's calm persistence struck a nerve. Outside Parliament, he kept shaping Labour's pitch for power. He promised serious answers to big problems. Fixing a crumbling NHS, helping people with soaring energy bills, tackling the cost of living crisis that forced working families to choose between heating and eating. He talked about restoring trust in politics, an idea that seemed almost impossible after years of scandals and spin. Yet for all his progress, doubts never left him. Some Labour supporters still worry he's too cautious, that he's moved too far from the party's left-wing roots. Others fear he's too lawyerly, too robotic, that ordinary voters won't connect with a man more comfortable in a courtroom than a crowd. His supporters say that's exactly what Britain needs now. Someone who reads the fine print, does the work, and won't promise the earth just to win votes. As the next general election looms, the polls show Labour leading. Some even predict a landslide. But Starmer knows a lead on paper means nothing until the ballots are counted. To win, he must convince millions who lent their votes to the Conservatives to come back to Labour. He must win over people who don't trust any politician at all. He must hold together a party that still doesn't fully agree on what it wants to be. And if he does win, then comes the real test. Can he keep his promises? Can he heal a country scarred by Brexit, economic crises, and political chaos? Can a quiet lawyer from a working-class family really fix an NHS on its knees, rebuild broken communities, and prove that serious politics can still change lives for the better? In the months ahead, Britain will decide if Keir Starmer, the quiet man with the sharp mind, is just another name on a ballot, or the leader who might finally turn a page on years of broken politics. Behind the calm suit and measured words is a man who knows the stakes couldn't be higher. For years, Keir Starmer has rebuilt Labour brick by brick, fighting to hold together a party that once seemed destined to break apart forever. Now, every interview, every policy promise, every handshake on the campaign trail is part of the biggest fight of his life. If he fails, it won't just be his career that ends. Labour could splinter once more, handing power back to the Conservatives and leaving millions of disillusioned voters feeling betrayed again. All the careful rebuilding, all the battles to stamp out anti-Semitism, to restore trust, to unite rival factions, wasted. But if he wins, he doesn't just get the keys to number 10, Downing Street. He gets a chance to rewrite Britain's future at one of its most divided, uncertain moments. He could try to fix an economy squeezed by global shocks, heal wounds left by Brexit, and restore faith in politics when so many have switched off for good. And yet, the real test won't be the moment he stands at the famous black door. It will be every tough decision that comes after. Because for Keir Starmer, the quiet lawyer who rose from a working-class home to the top of British politics, the hardest part isn't winning power. It's proving he can use it. Will Keir Starmer be the leader who saves Labour and Britain? Or will he become just another name in the long list of forgotten politicians? Only time will tell. What do you think? Can Keir Starmer deliver real change? Tell us in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe for more political deep dives, and ring the bell for the next chapter in Britain's political drama.